All right. Today I am folding a brand new pattern. It's named Entwined, and I designed it for Tessellation Academy. And you are getting the first view along with me of what this pattern actually looks like. And I'm going to be folding it on 64 grid divisions, aligned with the edge of the paper on a hexagon of sky tone. And it's going to start out very much like enveloped, which is a pattern that I've taught before. I will clarify and say that this one is more of a demonstration than a tutorial, although I will be saying what's going on as I'm working, but I'm going to be folding at full speed, giving you a view of what it looks like when I'm folding these patterns. I do have the chat visible, so feel free to pop in any questions and I will see them and answer them. I'm happy to talk while I fold. So the first thing I'm doing is a closed hexagon twist. I'll zoom in. And got that in place. And then I'm going to put closed rhombus twists at tube pleat spacing, so the through line from the rhombus is on the pleat from the central hexagon. And between these rhombi, for this ring around the center, I will have triangle wraps. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be folding at full speed. So this is not a tutorial, but if you're experienced with folding tessellations, you'll be able to get enough information from this to be able to fold this pattern for yourself. Yeah. And the first part of this pattern does follow a tutorial I've done for enveloped. But this one is going to have some weirder things going on. This one, I'm putting in my new pleat first, then reforming the old pleat. You could also think about that as reordering that pleat overlap. And then the triangle wrap with the prior rhombus. And then for this sixth rhombus, I'm forming the triangle wrap first before I finish setting up the twist. Then I can get the triangle wrap on the other side and the accordion pleat like we see everywhere else. And then these triangle wraps are going to turn into open rhombus twists. And going to lift this layer so there's a little less under that twist corner that I'm about to squash. And let's see, my crease pattern is drawn from the hexagon side, so I'm doing some translation in my head. The rhombus twist is going to, the pleat is going to a closed triangle twist, which will get folded in this round. But the thing on this plate is another open rhombus that will not be completed this round. So I'm going to set it up as a three-way intersection and then get the triangle wrap. Or will it be completed this round? I'm going to consult the tiling. So, gonna show this on screen. Okay. So what I'm gonna, oh, I will be finishing that rhombus. Yeah, okay. So in the center, I have the hexagon and the rhombi that I already completed. And then these red rhombi are distinct positions. So this one is halfway between the hexagons, and this one is part of this loop of 6. But in the crease pattern, they're both open rhombus twists on the same side. And I get a nice full ring. So I don't have any partial twists on this ring. I don't have any partial twists on the next ring. The ring after, I'll have partial hexagons, but nothing else. Cool. And the reason why I designed this pattern for Tessellation Academy is because it has this ladder, these 3 consecutive rhombi in a stripe between the hexagon twists. So that is the category that we're looking at, patterns that have that stripe of rhombi between hexagons, and that'll come out in May. But continuing with the folding, I will be finishing that rhombus. And I'm also going to be finishing the next rhombus, so I may as well go ahead and set that one up too. And they've got a triangle between them. It's important to keep your plates actually laying flat with the folds on grid lines. Not easy, but important. So then I can squash both of those. And I'm going to choose to flip over and squash the triangle, even though I wouldn't technically need to. All of my triangles are on the outside. It's just a good habit, and it keeps your paper more stable. So this one, instead of setting up the 3-way intersection, I'm going to go straight for the rhombus. And that's going to make a double depth pleat because it's adding onto the pleat from the triangle wrap in here. And that's going only a single space before the triangle wrap from this rhombus and like I mentioned before, I do have an eye on the chat, so feel free to drop in comments or questions. And if this looks a lot like the pattern Quicksand on the thumbnail for this video, you would be correct. So far, it's indistinguishable. In Quicksand, that triangle that I just squashed is the position of threefold symmetry. But here, that symmetry point is moved further out. So I've got two triangles there. I'm going to continue around putting in two rhombi and two triangle wraps the rest of the way around. And on and on and on. And triangles. Here's an important thing. This pleat is coming under the existing twist and it would make a new fold in the twist. So I'm going to do a compound wrap with the pleat that sticks out over. So that can freely stick out. And then triangle, triangle. The other option I had is going ahead and folding that last rhombus with the other two. That's a lot of setup. So I chose to leave it for later. And this is a triangle wrap on either side. And flip. And squash those triangles. So the difference between this pattern and quicksand is that quicksand uses the space between these two rhombi as a position of twofold rotational symmetry, and this pattern uses this rhombus as the position of twofold rotational symmetry. It's a small shift, but it makes a big difference. And so, let's see, next up, I'm going to bring my tiling back for me to see. Okay, so I'm completing loops of 6 and adding the third rhombus in a stripe. Okay, really hard to see on here the stripes of rhombi, because since they're twisting in opposite directions, they don't look like they're in a stripe. But yeah, that's going to be that one, next one on. And let me see here. Okay. There's not a good clean place to start. Cool. Okay. So I get to pick one. Okay. Gonna have a third rhombus in that stripe. Yeah. Okay. So this is me reading a crease pattern, granted that I designed, but reading it for the first time. And I'm gonna have another open rhombus stacking on here. And that is going to be a rhombus and a triangle in different, like it's going to make 2 twists, so I'm not going to wrap anything. I'm just going to let it overlap. And use my bone folder to encourage that fold to actually go to the corner even though there's layers. There we go. Okay, so it has these 3 in a row, and then it's gonna have Okay, so the valley gets 2 spaces. 2, there we go. Nope, down. And triangle wrap, which makes a double depth pleat. And this one I will wrap because it's going to a single twist on the other side. Specifically, one of those rhombi that we put around the central hexagon. And that's a compound wrap. And the important thing is that these 3 rhombi are in different orientations. And that's a position of symmetry in the pattern. And I've got a triangle here. That's a triangle for now, but it's going to become a rhombus, so I'll leave it. And that's my next rhombus twist. With a compound wrap, because it's feeding into another rhombus. So we're going to have 3 rhombi and a triangle per side. I actually don't like having that layer there for the squash. I'm going to go ahead and put in the next twist. Or at least, yeah, I'll put it as a triangle wrap above and triangle wrap below. Which makes it easier to squash this twist cleanly, because there's nothing up under it. This is a double depth pleat, by the way. And then I can finish this rhombus. I could have gone ahead and squashed the triangle, but I didn't feel like it. Yeah. Okay. So now, triangle. You can see these 3 triangles clustering together. That's one of the symmetry points. And then rhombus and compound wrap, which leads to a double depth pleat. So it looks like a closed trapezoid right now, but we're going to move the pleats around when we make the rhombus on the other side. And yes. Oh, and I didn't think it through when I started, because this is definitely the front of the pattern, even though the crease pattern calls it the back. But I would have put the harsher grid lines on this side. Oh well. You live and you learn. And I would bet that you could do this with closed rhombus twists too, if you put the initial closed rhombi closer to the hexagon and had them overlapping, because that's the relationship between enveloped and whirlpool. I would bet that it would work for quicksand and entwined too. But it's a royal pain. So many layers. But if you wanted to do this and get basically the same thing on 48 divisions instead of 64, try it with the closed twists. You never know. Okay, so here I'm gonna experiment a bit and see what happens if I just go ahead and set up the next rhombus too, instead of setting it up as triangle wrap above and below. That worked pretty smoothly. So once you know the sequence, you can start chaining more bits together if you want. Okay, here I'm coming around to where I started, and I think it'll still be reasonable to do what I've been doing. Yeah, just gonna be adding another triangle wrap onto the existing triangle wrap, which I had mentioned earlier was waiting to become a rhombus. So one of the great things about this rhombus variant of the rhombus ladder tilings, and I say rhombus variant because the loop of 6 twists that are alternating triangles and rhombi, there's another variant of the tiling where that's a hexagon and 3 triangles. But with this variant, with the extra rhombi, you get tiling breaks all the way out. Or, I mean, the first ring around the center isn't a true tiling break, but then you get 2 true tiling breaks out to here. And that is really nice for these patterns. And so from here, we're just going to see this pattern grow and grow and grow. We're getting back into the copies of the center now. And actually, I'm going to flip over, start there. For my next ring of repeats, I'm going to get half a hexagon in this ring. And let's see, the center of that hexagon is going to be, see, there's 2 spaces and then another to the center. And other than the hexagon, I'll have all complete twists. So that little gesture was, this already has 3, it's going to be the same orientation as that. Ta-da! And that is not a triangle. That is a rhombus. Partly I know because the triangles are grouped together and nothing on these bars connected to a triangle is a triangle. So that has to be a rhombus. Also, it's coming up to the rhombus on the seam side, which means it's time for the next hexagon. And heck, I may as well throw in that whole rhombus while I'm here. Easier than doing a 3-way intersection and then opening that up. Well, also hello to Erlu and Adipi in the chat. Glad you could join us. So yeah, it's a fairly complicated pattern, but there's no trapezoids, there's no hybrid twists. One of the things about this pattern is that it really tells a story of being able to take a motif like this one that you can repeat directly by having that rhombus in a position of twofold symmetry, and then saying, well, what if I put a rhombus in between these two rhombi and have that in a position of twofold symmetry, like for encrusted, or not encrusted, enveloped. And then what if I push the symmetry position further out for quicksand, and what if I push it further out? Oh, nice. I'm glad it's a good time of the day for you in Norway. And yeah, it's great to relax after work by watching someone make something. So, yeah, so picking up the story, the sequence of, well, I had this starting pattern, and then I did this to it, and then I did that to it, and then I did the other, that can be done with any of these starting sequences. Some of them are going to be harder than others, like doing the just rhombi flagstone start is going to be really hard to put anything else in between. But it is possible. And there's all kinds of cool patterns that you can get from making variations of existing patterns. Oh, nice. Yeah, Erlu was saying in the chat that they've folded enveloped before, and so they're able to follow what I'm doing even as a later arrival to the video, to the stream. And so, ooh, we get these cool Google Drive logo motifs. Penrose triangle, I think, is the original inspiration. But then also these stripes, and it seems like it's going and then flipping and going again. Intertwined ribbons of things. Dun, 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 dun. So this ring around the center is going a lot faster than the previous one, which is interesting because usually each successive ring takes more time, not less. But I think one thing that's making this ring faster is that I'm able to do more of it on one side before flipping. So I just had rhombus, half hexagon, rhombus in a row. Then I'm flipping to do one rhombus. But you can also use the video to time me. Now I'm back to where I started, finishing this half hexagon, putting in the rhombus. And then, let's see, after I finish this hexagon and do the whole ring around, there will be one rhombus per, no, one rhombus per side that is a partial, and it's going to be one of the ones right around the hexagon. I'll start conveniently. I can start with the hexagon itself. And I'm pretty sure it's this one that's going to be the partial, because three-way intersection above and below, yeah, that's definitely the partial. And then this needs a third aligned rhombus. And then that actually does need to be a triangle. You can see triangles on opposite sides of a rhombus. And that definitely needs to be wrapped because there's this other layer stuck up in it. And we can restore what was wrapped. It's going to make another rhombus. And I had checked in the tiling earlier that it's a full rhombus. So now we're on to the next set of parallel pleats. And that... So this time, instead of doing the whole hexagon, I have that pleat before the hexagon. So I'm going to add in another three-way intersection and fold out through the layers. This is actually going to add another pleat back in the direction I came from, but that's okay. Let me get that whole rhombus, and then I can open this up. Conveniently, my mountain and valley stay on the same grid line as I finish the hexagon. And then triangle above, triangle below, neither of which actually go to triangle twists. Both going to be rhombi, but that one's going to be a rhombus now. The other one will be a rhombus in the next ring around the center. Got this extra layer coming through here that I'm just going to pretend is flat paper, because there's not much I can do about it. And that does need to be a triangle, and it does need to have a compound wrap. And I do need to be careful that these layers aren't trying to compete. And flip. And then restore the pleat from the triangle, because the wrap did move things around. And rhombus. Rinse and repeat. But yeah, that's cool that the two of you in the chat are in the same time zone. It's a more convenient time, like 4:30, 5 o'clock p.m. is a more convenient time to watch something for a lot of people. So it makes sense that the people who are here are the people who it's more convenient to be here. Yeah. Good question, Erlu. So the question is, do I fold my origami directly after making the grid, or are there treatments between folding the grid and folding the origami? I do fold my tessellations immediately after the grid is made, sometimes like very literally as soon as the grid is done. This one sat waiting for a couple days because I wanted to have it ready in advance. But the extra processing step that I do is actually after the pattern has been folded, then I'll put it in a stack of basically a stack of heavy flat things, which for me is pieces of acrylic, like the ones I sell as cutting templates. And that makes a flat press that I can then get nice photos of. And as for like the amount of time that it sits flat after folding the pattern, anywhere from a couple days to a couple months. Kind of depends on when I'm doing my photography. But I would say at least 24 to 48 hours. I've tried pulling it out faster than that, and it hasn't been as flat as I wanted. But yeah, good question. We are coming right on around. We have, ooh, that was almost a mistake. It's very easy to get mixed up with the wrap after the triangle twist. You could very easily treat it as more of a flagstone twist. Yeah, so Erlu's saying instead of acrylic, he uses heavy books, and specifically hardcover. That's a great idea. I did just notice that we're at the top of the hour already, but I'll keep folding a bit more. the actual folding tessellations is the best part of my day, so I don't mind spending more time on it. Well, thank you. Chess2 says, Madonna, you are my favorite YouTuber. I really appreciate that. Makes my day. Yeah, so Adipi is saying that they usually use 4 hours to make a tessellation on 32 divisions of grid, and 30 minutes of that is just folding the grid. This is 64 divisions. I would say that for 64 divisions, I usually take an hour. It kind of depends what else I'm doing. If I'm watching a video where I have to look up, it takes a lot longer than an hour to fold a grid. But then the actual folding process, depending on the pattern, for me takes somewhere between, I'm gonna call it 2.5 and 5 hours. Really depends on the pattern. But yeah, this is definitely not beginner speed. Okay, so there I had to do a different wrap. I had to do a compound wrap that caused a double depth pleat because this hexagon's already completed. So I had another pleat coming through here to contend with. And that's going to turn into my rhombus twist next to the hexagon. So I've been folding this now for almost exactly an hour. And let me show the backlighting. It's real spidery on this side. And on the other side, there's open windows in the flagstone strips. It's really cool. And the swirls in those hexagon holes. I like this one. And to continue, let's see. I'm gonna have several twists cut off. I think 3 per side. Yeah, music while folding the grid is a great idea. For this ring around the center, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna get all of those closed rhombi around the hexagon, and then all the rhombi on, all the open rhombi are suspect. Some of them will be able to do completely, but a lot of them not. Okay, so this is a triangle. It's pointing down. And it is that triangle specifically, because it's coming from the same thing. And so my next thing here is a triangle with that single wide pleat coming up. And then my third triangle on this will be down here. And that's a compound wrap, which means I can go ahead and make a rhombus on the other side. Triangle wrap up here, compound down here. Yeah, everyone's gonna have different folding speeds for the grid and for the patterns, and I mean, depending on what patterns you choose to fold, that's gonna make a big difference. If it's a pattern you've folded before versus not. Let's see, this guy is going to a triangle. Interesting. So we'll get another full rhombus. And I just need to remember to restore the pleat before I think I know where the setup for the open rhombus is. Okay, there we go. And that is, again, a compound wrap with the fat corner of the rhombus sticking out over the incoming pleats, and we get a doubled up pleat here. Okay. And I'm basically following the chain reaction. That one's a full rhombus. This next one's already set up as a three-way intersection, so it's definitely becoming a full rhombus. It only causes a triangle wrap though, so that's going to sit and wait. And then we're down into this territory with more triangle twists. And it's like I said, by looking at the tiling, 1, 2, 3 triangle wraps per side. And then repeat with this triangle and compound wrap. I'm always making sure that any pleats that I'm crossing with a new fold are correctly folded. Yeah, Maelstrom and Andromeda are both pretty difficult. At least with Maelstrom, like it's a similar kind of complexity with all the different rhombus positions, but at least the twists aren't super up on top of each other. Andromeda has a bunch of flagstone elements with those open hexagon twists. That is definitely a challenging pattern. So for this pattern, I'm basically, or for this ring around the center, I'm basically going on the hexagon side until I hit a compound wrap, then flipping over and folding that rhombus. And as I transition from one set of parallel plates to the other, I have triangle with compound wrap, flip, fold a rhombus, come back, triangle with compound wrap, flip, fold a rhombus. Okay, that is a triangle going on under there. It's going to come out to there. My next mountain's going to come out this way. It doesn't look right, but it is. It just needed some encouragement to be the best open rhombus it could be. But yeah, back to the discussion about folding speed. Part of the reason why I'm able to fold this pattern so quickly is because I have folded all of the precursor patterns of enveloped and quicksand and all the rest of it. And also like jewelry rings and a bunch of others, or jewelry shop, I think it was. That was an alternate ending for Enveloped in the Advent of Tess 2024 ebook. But just literally, I've probably folded 2,000 tessellations by now. Or if not, I'm getting close, because I've folded almost 700 of my own designs, and that's not counting anything that I've taught, which is also substantial. Of course, sometimes I teach patterns that I haven't folded before already. But that's another story. So I'd say I'm well over 1,000 pieces folded, and of those, I'll say at least 300 to 400 have been on at least 48 divisions, and that's like 48 up to 144. So if you're talking like, if you're normalizing to 32 division grids, then I've definitely folded 2,000 tessellations worth. And that's why I'm this fast. Let's see. See, there's more comments. There are folds that are a priori complex, for which the sequence of folds seems natural. Yeah. But then more difficulty with other kinds of patterns like isoarea. Yeah, there's like different people's brains have different challenges. It's just interesting to see how that all works out. And as you work through more and more types of patterns, they'll often get easier with practice. And so there's always a new challenge. That's one of the things I love about folding tessellations. It never gets old, at least for me, because I can always challenge myself with more density, more different positions in the pattern. Have it be isoarea, have it be, and the tricky bit with isoarea is you do stuff on one side, and then you have to do the mirror image of it on the other side. But yeah, a whole world of patterns, including this one probably, opened up to me when I realized that you could leave twists partially set up, but not fully squashed, like the three-way intersections for the rhombi. Instead of saying, oh, I know that there needs to be a rhombus there, let me go ahead and put a rhombus there. Just saying, yeah, it'll get there, but it'll be smoother for me to work with if I leave it as a three-way intersection right now. That has opened up a huge range of new patterns. Ooh. On my last set of parallel pleats for this ring around the center. And like that move, for example, is physically hard with the paper. And I'm glad I'm using Skytone, because a mushier paper would have a lot of trouble holding that tension. And then there's the conceptually hard things of like, well, where actually are the symmetry points right now? And I have so many rhombus twists on the other side. Which ones are which? Which direction should the next one go? And the pleats help with the question of which direction, because they don't leave it up to chance. There's only one way. Once you have two pleats coming together, there's only one way to fold your rhombus. And that is really dense. And there is a layering thing going on with being even able to grab the right pleats. That second one in there, I'm going to leave folded. Just do a compound wrap right through it. Oh, that's going to turn into 2 rhombus twists, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to need to do both of these at the same time. Here I'm going to do the trick like I did around the center, lifting that flap so I can squash more easily. Okay. And see, I'm glad I went this far because the next ring of repeats is going to have an interesting challenge. And that will be a triangle. Yes. Okay. So now I'm just going to do one set of parallel plates on here. I'll do the rest of them later. Oh yeah. Yeah, so the backlighting, why doesn't it look the same when you flip? It's the same number of layers. Okay, so mathematically, if you were to generate and have it completely flat, then it would be the same number of layers. When you flip it over, you'd see the same thing. And you see that actually with glassine. If you look at what people have folded for Advent of Tess with glassine, it's really hard to tell which side of the paper you're looking at it from when it's backlit. But with paper with any amount of thickness, you do have a distance between the topmost layer and the backmost layer. And when you're backlighting, that distance can diffuse some of the light. And then as humans, we're really good at edge detection. So we'll see really clearly the edges on this side, and then when the paper's flipped over, we'll hardly see those edges at all. So those are my couple answers for you. Mathematically, yes, but we're in a physical world. Diffusion, because it's not quite perfectly flat, and edge detection. And for this, I'm going to need to set up all 3. And these are going to be 3 in a stripe, like these 3. I'm going to need to set them all up at the same time because the way that they're wrapped is going to prevent me from doing them one at a time, just from a layers standpoint. And that's because of the flagstone spacing. They weren't spaced so densely. Oh, look, and a 4th. And that will wrap. So these, like any small portion of this, is stuff that we've seen in previous rings around the center. But because this ring is so big, it chains all of them together. And so we end up setting up and squashing 4 open rhombus twists with triangle wraps in between, only some of which will turn into triangles. Oh yeah, math was my favorite subject too. You're very welcome. And I will say that even though, okay, so first flipping, that one is destined to be a triangle because it's next to a triangle. That one is destined to be a triangle because it's an offshoot from the center. This one is also destined to be a triangle. And that one would not be destined to be a triangle, but I'm going to make it a triangle because I'm going to stop after this ring and have a border. So would have been a rhombus is now a triangle. This one is a compound wrap, and so I can freely make that a rhombus without adding new pleats through here. And it makes a compound wrap, which means I can fold the next rhombus Oh, nice. That completes a stripe. Am I really going to finish the pattern with... No, I'm not going to have only complete stripes. There's going to be one stripe in a corner that's not complete, corresponding to that one there. Yeah, but other than that, I'm going to have mostly complete stripes. That's cool. Okay, so now it's back to that massive setup of that flagstone stripe and then the one in the corner. Actually, that one in the corner is causing a triangle wrap that is a little problematic. Let's see, can I wrap my way out of that pleat going through stuff? Yes, I can. Nice. Okay, so I don't know exactly what's going on in the corner yet, but I can get all of these squashed. And then these I established last time. I'm going to make all triangles whether they would have been triangles or not. And there's something going on here. This one would be a triangle anyways. Here, there's going to be another triangle. Would you look at that? It puts a wrap on the other side, which I'm also going to turn into a triangle. To be clear, this is not going to stop my plan. But I'm going to turn it into an open triangle so it matches slope with everything else on this side. So that doesn't look as out of place as a closed triangle would. And that is going to be the corner of my pattern. Go ahead. Get this guy. Let's see if I can get into all of that mess from the bottom. So I don't have to come back and finish the corner. So it would be from this pleat gonna have a triangle. And then on this pleat, it's a lot of layers there. Gonna have another triangle that has a compound wrap on this side, triangle wrap on that side. And then this is my open triangle, but there's a bunch of layers, and so then I'll jump into the extended all the things, which is easier to untangle from the top, to be honest. Like, I know I'm gonna go all the way up here with it. I'm just gonna take it from the top. And then get all those pleats in place. Yeah, early physics was one of my favorite topics until undergrad, when my first semester I took the physics for physics majors, because I'd already had calculus-based physics in high school. Yeah, that's what convinced me that I was not a physics major. And now all those pleats are gone, and I can freely squash that triangle. Okay, so that is what the border's going to look like. So I'll go ahead and resolve what's here. Get these triangle twists too. Can't forget those. And then I'll show the backlighting again. So we've got, I'll zoom out a bit because there's more to see. So we're going to have a nice border. And on this side, it's going to be very swirly, very ribbony. We're just going to have that one triangle hanging out in the corner that's kind of a break from the normal pattern. But we'll get a nice pleated border, and that's why I chose this grid, because I knew from looking at the crease pattern that I could get a pleated border. So that's going to be all for today. I'll finish the rest on my own time. You can see it's taking me around 2 hours, maybe pushing 2.5, to get all the twists onto the paper. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how this one's turning out. So happy folding, everyone. And next week, I'm going to be talking about ways of manipulating tilings to basically kickstart designs and think about different ways of putting shapes together. So keep an eye out for that one, and I'll see you later. And Haden to you too. I hope I pronounced that right.